Welcome to Thriving with Trisha, the podcast for ambitious 20-somethings chasing big dreams and building lives they actually love. I'm Trisha, your host. Let's get into it. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Thriving with Trisha. I wanted to focus on an episode that's health related this time because I'm really passionate about health and my lifestyle and all my habits. And so this episode is going to be all about sleep, the science behind it, and how to unlearn the guilt around rest. And if you're tired even after sleeping, this one's for you. These next 20 minutes might actually change your life if you've been struggling with sleep. And I am going to be talking about my personal experience, how I completely changed my sleep, and simple ways that you can integrate rest into your life. I also want to talk about unlearning the guilt around rest because I feel like that's a big thing, especially for people in their 20s and especially for women. So if you were in high school and you struggled with sleep, we're in the same boat. I feel like it's really relatable and common to struggle with sleep, especially at that age. I would wake up feeling groggy, not refreshed, and I honestly cannot believe that I was still able to go to school, go to my classes, take my tests, and last through the day on that little amount of sleep and not that good quality of sleep. And we all function like that, right? And I cannot believe, looking back, I'm like, how did I do that? We would talk about, even amongst my friends, like how sleep deprived we were. And we were like, oh yeah, I really didn't get much sleep that night. And I feel like sometimes we would glorify it because it meant like we were working hard. But last year, I read an article that completely changed how I thought about sleep. And ultimately, it changed my life. And it made me realize how serious it really is. And so, kind of talking more about this article was very long. And it was this article written by a biohacker named Ben Greenfield. And what's funny is I actually almost worked for him because I had this interview in the time between the time that I was thinking about leaving my job at an agency, and then doing my own thing. I had an interview with this company and I made it to the final round where there were just two of us. And long story short, I didn't end up doing that job. Obviously, I ended up doing UGC and going on my own route, but I still really admire his work. And this article was the article that kind of led me into learning more about his work and ultimately led me to applying for that job. And so he is a biohacker, he's a health expert, and this article about sleep, it's actually called The Last Resource You Need on Sleep or something like that. And I'll link it down below because if you really wanted to get into the science, the resources, everything, you can read it for an hour, 2 hours. It's a long one. I spent a night reading it and it just changed completely my viewpoints on sleep. And so one thing that he says in the article, something like this: even the sleepless elite, people like Barack Obama, Martha Stewart, or top athletes, are probably sacrificing something. Somewhere, creativity or memory is suffering. Somewhere, inflammation is running rampant. Somewhere in the body, regeneration isn't happening. And reading this made me think, like, yes, I would say some successful people probably don't sleep too much, but we see people brag about sleeping less, but what we don't see is the cost. And this article explained that the lack of sleep doesn't just make you tired, it literally breaks down your body. And of course, we're told when we're little that sleep is so important. Make sure you go to bed early, make sure you don't go on your phone. But I don't think we really understand how important it is and the effect that it has in building up our body and the cost that it has when you don't sleep and the way that it's breaking it down. And this is another quote, but directly from the article: if you don't sleep, you will basically die more quickly. Maybe not overnight, but cumulative sleep loss destroys your brain and body. And I think after reading this article, I just thought about all the times that I didn't get enough sleep. And it really just brought to light what I was missing out on, And so I think after reading this article, I really just thought, wow, this is not something that, I should fix over time. This is something that I need to do now. I need to fix this now because all of that is adding up. And at the time that I read this article, I was already maybe 21 or 22, maybe just 2 years ago, right? So I was already thinking about all the sleep that I had lost up until that point. And here's another powerful statistic. In rat studies, total sleep deprivation caused death within about 3 weeks, mainly because their brains stopped regenerating neurons and their immune systems failed. And this one isn't in my notes, but there was another syndrome mentioned that was related to sleep deprivation. And within a few months, you can die because of insomnia and not having proper sleep. Just let that sink in a bit. If you're not getting enough sleep now, take this as your sign. I know it's so easy to just let go and not care about sleep, but truly it is so important. And so one thing about sleep is that the body repairs itself while you sleep, right? So the body is doing a lot of things while you sleep and things that you can only do while you sleep. So number one, growth hormone rises, testosterone rises. Also, the muscles, your immune system, and your liver repair. So think about that for a moment. Your muscles, your immune system, and your liver repair. And this mainly happens during sleep. Sleep is the primary anabolic state of the human body. That's why you feel so good after a good night of sleep and why your body can take 2 to 3 times longer to recover when you don't. So when you're sleeping, right, when you're hitting your ZZZs, that is the time that your body is repairing your muscles. If you've worked out, you've had a long day, that is the time that your body's repairing those muscles and how you can move quicker when you're working out, how you can see those gains sooner. In addition, for your immune system, a huge reason why people don't get sick, and personally, why I get sick, is when I don't sleep, because during sleep is when you're repairing and recovering. And if you're lacking that time to recover, then you're just not recovering. And so I find that when I don't get a solid 7 to 9 hours of sleep, I get sick. I get sick like that. And so when I was younger, when I was in high school, I was getting sick a lot more often. And I didn't really make the connection, but sleep is such a huge part of it. And when I began to fix my sleep, and don't worry, I know I'm throwing all these statistics and scary quotes at you, but I'm also going to be talking about ways that I changed my sleep and how you can change yours. But there's just so many important functions of the body that fix itself while you're sleeping. And so if you're not sleeping, you're losing out on all these amazing benefits. And so when people brag about how little they sleep, they are literally hurting themselves because of that. And, now that I look back and I really think about it, a lot of the famous people, the most successful people these days that I really look up to, they care about their health. They care about their sleep. And that's how they're able to get so much done. And just going one layer deeper, before we get into some of the more wholesome, stuff about sleep, my personal transformation, and how you can really improve your sleep, this last layer going into it is talking about the aging and the longevity relating to sleep. So depriving the body of sleep is synonymous to speeding up the aging process. As I just mentioned, there's all these things and all these bodily functions that are related to sleep. So if you're not recovering or not repairing, then of course you are speeding up your aging. So let's talk about 2 reasons why sleep is so important. Number 1, the brain cleans up cellular garbage while you sleep. Yeah, literally cellular garbage. So what is not needed, the toxins are flushed out through the lymphatic system. And, So when you sleep, just think about all the bad stuff leaving your body. It's like kind of like those memes that you see where it's just coming out of you because all those bad things are being flushed out of your body. In addition, the information throughout the day that you've learned, that your body has taken in, is processed during your sleep. And your memories are linked to your sleep. And so if you know that movie Inside Out, I think that's a good analogy because you can see it when Riley goes to sleep. All of the little, I don't even know what to call them, but all the little avatars like sadness and embarrassment and all those little avatars that she has, joy, right? They take her memories and they sort them. They sort them into the proper buckets. And this is when she sleeps. And so you can kind of think yourself similar to Riley, right? When you sleep, your brain is also doing that. And that's how your body is repairing itself, remembering all those memories. And so when you're not sleeping, there's those memories that you might not remember as well. There's the things that you might have learned the day before, and you just aren't going to remember it the same way. And so you might be trying to recall something from the past. You might be trying to recall a certain memory, and you just don't remember it. And so that is really big to me because, of course, I want to keep a memory, right? Of course, I want to keep remembering all the things that I'm going through. If you don't get enough deep sleep, your brain becomes chaotic. And an analogy here is like hundreds of browser tabs open that never reset. And so if this reorganization and drainage of toxins isn't allowed to occur, your mind becomes a chaotic storehouse for cellular garbage. Your mind becomes a chaotic storehouse for cellular garbage. Do we want that? No, we do not want that. Like, that just sounds horrible, right? Even just reading it. And so I hope this shows that there is a lot of science that goes behind sleep. And I know when we were younger, and if you're a little younger still while you're watching this, that's amazing because you're on the right track. And I hope you decide to fix this today. And I hope it also, shows just how important it really is because we don't think about it enough. When you're younger and when you're older, even if you're in your 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s watching this, it's just a little reminder that if you haven't been sleeping enough, please get your sleep. It will help you. And now I kind of want to talk about my personal transformation and how I completely changed my sleep. So once I realized all this, I knew I had to change my sleeping habits. I knew there was no way. I remember that exact night. I can still remember the exact yellow striped shirt that I was wearing. That's actually thrifted from my mom's closet. And I remember being in the little lounge of the apartment in Austin that I was living at the time and reading this article. And it might have been already 10 or 11 p.m. by the time I finished reading it. But I knew the moment I read that, I had to change my sleep. And so, number one, I want to say that I've never taken melatonin. I've never taken sleeping pills. I've just changed my sleep naturally on awareness and consistency. And so what works for me? Number one, there's a method that I swear worked so well for me and it really just changed the way I sleep. I think I even started doing this before I read the article because I was hearing other personal growth experts, sleep experts, people talk about this method, and even just on those articles, like healthline.com, those type of articles where you're kind of just on a rabbit hole. I think I actually read about this a little bit before then, but I didn't really take it more seriously until after the fact. But one method that really works for me is the 4-7-8 method. If you don't know what that is, I will tell you right now because I love this method. So the 4-7-8 method is broken down into 3 parts: 4 seconds, 7 seconds, 8 seconds. You take 4 seconds to inhale, a really deep inhale for 4 seconds. That's how long you take to increase the breath going into your body, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4. That's how long your body and my belly, because I'm breathing from my diaphragm, so my belly is expanding, right? So it takes 4 seconds to expand your belly. 7 seconds to hold that breath. So literally hold that breath for 7 seconds, and then 8 seconds to release it and to release the air that's in your belly. Now, if you've never done meditation or anything like this, guided breathing, I know it might sound a little weird, right? It might sound hard. Like, how am I going to count for 4, 7, 8, and I'm trying to breathe at the same time? Like, how am I supposed to do that, right? And you don't exactly have to follow this exact 4, 7, 8, right? Like, of course, maybe it might be 3 seconds, 5 seconds, whatever. And, holding it for 7 seconds might feel a little bit different to you. It might feel uncomfortable, but trying to follow it over time and just doing it maybe for 2 nights, 3 nights, 4 nights, once you reach a week, once you reach 2 weeks, it'll seem more natural to you. And don't be so caught up in the counting. Like, of course, try your best to count, but if you mess up, just keep going, because of course you're trying to sleep. You don't want to overthink about that. One thing I want to point out is the exhale should be longer than the inhale and the time you're holding your breath. And so that's why it's 8 seconds. That's why it's particularly long. There's science behind this, where when your exhale is longer, there's science behind it. I believe it's relating to your body just getting into that restful, peaceful mode rather than fight or flight. And it just helps with that. And so this 4, 7, 8 method, I've been using every night for the past at least 3 years to sleep, right? Maybe 2 to 3 years. And it works for me very well. And people in the military, I believe, use this method. There's also specifically another method I think that they're taught. And I've tried a lot of methods. So I experimented with a lot of different breathing methods before I kind of settled in just naturally on the 4, 7, 8 method, because it really worked well for me. And so it might take some time for you to figure out different sleeping methods, different breathing methods for sleep. And you can do the research, right? There's different methods. This is not the only one, but it's just the one that I really, really liked to do and the one that worked for me over time. And so aside from that, one thing that works for me is getting a Fitbit. And so this is a Fitbit. It kind of looks like an Apple Watch. Hold on 1 second, guys. Need to get some water. I was just so passionate about the 4, 7, 8 method that I ran out of breath while talking about it. But yeah, so getting my Fitbit, that is one thing that just completely changed my sleep, because your Fitbit, and I think the Apple Watch does this too. I'm not sure. You can look at different devices that might do this. I've had this Fitbit for years now, and what it does is it tracks my sleep. And so it breaks down the amount of time that I'm actually sleeping, the amount of time that I'm awake, and then the different stages of sleep, like deep sleep, REM, all those fun things. It breaks it down and it shows me the exact points in the night that I woke up. Because I want to clarify this, you might not know this, but when you calculate your sleep, so let's say you're going to bed at 11 p.m., you fall asleep around 11:30 p.m., that's fine, right? But then when you wake up at 6 a.m. and you might think, oh, I slept from 11:30 a.m. to 6 p.m. I slept 7.5 hours. That is not the case. You wake up in the middle of the night. Like, there's little bursts of time where you wake up and it kind of adds up. I believe the average is around 30-ish minutes, maybe even 40 minutes per person. But when I sleep nowadays, I take that into account, right? Because it's like I'm sleeping at 10:30 p.m., but then I'll add like 40, 45 minutes for some buffer. and I'll actually be sleeping at 11:15 p.m. because I have to think about that time that I'm awake. And even when you're lying in bed and you might be in that light-ish sleep, I mean, but you're still kind of awake, or you might be trying to sleep. Like, there's that time too. There's that time that you spend awake. And so I think when I was younger, I didn't realize, like, I thought I was getting 8 hours of sleep, but I might have only been getting 6.5, 7 hours of sleep. And especially the nights in high school where I would be studying, I'd be trying to cram, and I'd be thinking I'd be getting 7 hours of sleep. I'd really probably only be getting 5.5 hours of sleep, right? And so I can't imagine the impact that had on my performance. And I feel like it's a universal experience, right? Where it's like we're just trying our best and that's fine. But now that I know this, like, of course, I'm going to try to do better. And so I really recommend getting a Fitbit or an Apple Watch or some sort of tracker where you can see it. You can see it in the app. And it's helped me see my sleep overnight. It helps me when I travel. And they're actually one of my dream sponsors. So maybe one day I'll get a sponsorship. But yeah, that is one thing. And I've told my family and friends about this, and I've just really been adamant on tracking my sleep. And I know sometimes it might take time getting used to wear it at night, but hopefully you can find what works for you, because when you start to see the patterns, when you get the data, that's when you can improve on your sleep. And that's just my little spiel about Fitbit, guys. Oh my gosh. I think I might have, no, I didn't. I feel like I almost accidentally cut myself, but nothing. So we're good. Oh, there's also there's a few other tips I want to mention with what worked for me, but I recently worked with a neuroscientist over the summer, and one of the big things that we talked about was sleep. And so that also kind of, I guess, awakened another part of my interest in sleep, because I talked to her about sleep, and we talked about how important it was, right? And one of the first things that we tackled, because I had 4 one-on-one sessions with her, so over a course of a month, I spoke with her for 4 hours, and we tackled a different area each time. And one area that we talked about was chronotypes and sleep chronotypes, and just really getting my chronotype for sleep and figuring out what that was, to find out the time that I should be sleeping, the time that I should be sleeping, waking up, what's natural for me, what's best for me, to really fuel the productivity in the rest of my day, and to not compare myself to others that have different chronotypes. So one thing is that your chronotype, I guess there's different animals linked to it, and I actually don't have the exact definition like in my notes, but there's different animals linked to our circadian rhythms, the way that we sleep. And so my personal chronotype is a bear. And if you're a bear chronotype, which a majority of the world's population is, if you're a bear chronotype, you can normally sleep and wake up at the same time each day. There are certain times that are good for you for sleeping. So for me, it's like I need to wind down around 9 p.m., 9:30 p.m., and then by 10 to 11 p.m., that's when I should be really trying to go to sleep. And then somewhere between 7 to 8 a.m., that's when I'm waking up. And, normally if you're a bear chronotype, like, that's the case, and you can wake up and sleep at the same time. And usually I don't even need an alarm to wake up, especially like with the sunlight. I know there's some people that are not like that. So there's some people that are is it whale? I think it's dolphin. There's a dolphin chronotype. There's a wolf, where it's really sporadic, right? Where you don't get to sleep at that same consistent time, or you might be waking up at different periods of time. And I know my boyfriend is not a bear. Some of my friends are not bears. And so you might need to look into that. And I would recommend taking this test. I'll link it down below. It's like on the Sleep Doctor website, where you can see your chronotype, and it will literally tell you, like, this is what your routine should be. This is your most productive times of the day. And you can kind of plan around that. But I've been doing that now ever since I learned more about it since the summer. And it's really worked well for me in getting more work done as well. And so, of course, sleep is connected to your productivity, and finding out your chronotype works. And this neuroscientist. If you want to learn more about her, her name is Dr. Julie Frantoni, and I loved working with her, and it just really opened my eyes to neuroscience. And I'm even starting this neuroscience series on my Instagram because I love it so much, and I am going to get more into it. And lastly, with my personal transformation, my sleep environment, that was one thing, because your sleep environment can help you a ton, and changing it might take some time, but the little tweaks really add up. So, number one thing, you have to keep it cool. So, I don't know, some of my friends like to sleep in hot temperatures, but you should keep it cool, like mid to low 60s cool, because that will just help. And personally, if it's not like that, I have a hard time sleeping. But just scientifically, that's the temperature you should be sleeping at to really help your body the most. You should keep it dark. So if you can keep it dark where, nothing, no light will get in, you're not distracted by maybe things happening outside, keep it dark. You can get some blackout curtains if you want. No screens. Guys, this is the hardest thing for me because, of course, I'm so used to maybe having my phone in bed, maybe even having my phone in the room. During the time I worked with a neuroscientist, and even last week, like I completely tried it where I didn't bring my phone into the room at all. Game changer. It is a game changer. I got an extra 1 to 1.5 hours of sleep because you just don't realize the amount of time that you spent doom scrolling, and then the amount of information that you're processing, it just floods your brain at the moment that you're trying to sleep, right? So it's really not good. And that is a whole nother conversation. And lastly, we're getting kind of near the end here, but lastly, I want to talk about the emotional and societal side of sleeping, because we built a culture that makes rest feel like a weakness. We built a culture that does not glorify sleep at all. We built that hustle culture. Especially as women, we are balancing so much. Hormones, cycles, work, everything. Yet we still feel guilty for needing to slow down. I want to get real with you. If you are a woman watching this right now, have you been getting enough sleep after everything you've heard? If the answer is no, please, please, please take this seriously, because sleep affects everything. It affects your hormones. It affects how you're functioning, your emotions, all of that. It affects it all. And rest is a strength. It literally is how your body rebuilds itself. It rebuilds, it recovers, it repairs, it does all of that. And so you might be taking supplements, you might be taking medications, you might be taking all these things, but really your sleep is so important. And if you can fix, for me, right? For me, I don't really take too many supplements. Like I take vitamin C, I take zinc, but if I can fix something naturally first, like exercise, sleep, these things, you might be overlooking the simplest things. So if you can consult your doctor, your medical provider about sleep and how you can better your sleep, and how you can fix your sleep naturally, and even just taking the tips that I have today, please focus on your sleep, because it has had the most immense impact on my health. And that is why this is the first episode I had about health and why I chose to focus on sleep, because that's just how important it is. Not even exercising, love to exercise and all of that, but sleep is a must, and it's a non-negotiable. And you just need to protect your energy, because that's how you make better decisions. That's how you can function. And also, especially if you're a mom, I'm not a mom yet, but if you're a mom, you can set a good example for your kids. I know some ladies watching this, maybe they have newborns, they have toddlers. If you're a mom, you can set an example for your kids, because it will just help a ton. And yes, it's really easy to make excuses about sleep. But at the end of the day, you're the one in the driver's seat. I say this all the time in all my episodes, lovingly but true. You're the one that has control over it. And if you're going to prioritize something, please prioritize your sleep. Little micro resets and practical ways to apply this. So some other ways to rest during the day, specifically for your brain, because rest doesn't always mean sleeping. It can also be with your brain. So one thing, our brain breaks, little moments, maybe 3 to 5 minutes of just letting your brain not do anything. Like, don't be working, you can just sit, like, you can just let your brain not think at the moment, or let it have its natural stream of thought, because that is one thing I learned from my neuroscientist. I wasn't doing enough brain breaks. It would just be, my calendar would be blocked one after another and there would be no breaks in between. Now I intentionally schedule breaks in between, like little brain breaks where I just do nothing. You can also go on short walks. Walking is amazing, and I might do a podcast episode on it in the future, but walking is great. Letting yourself be bored. That is one thing, especially for Gen Alpha, Gen Z, letting yourself be bored. Now I think even it's seeping into older generations, but we don't let ourselves be bored enough. We're always on our phones, even in the bathroom, right? Even in the car. Guys, my video camera died. Like, I didn't even realize I was talking about sleep for literally like 35 minutes now. Isn't that crazy? Like, this is my longest episode so far. But I'm filming on my phone now. So basically, wrapping all this up, sleep is so important because it's the foundation for everything that you do. Hopefully you've learned something about sleep, and you're going to take action today. Don't wait to take action. Definitely take action now, because it's something that can really change the rest of your life. So thanks for tuning in, and I hope you have a good rest of your day. Of course, follow me if you want more of this content. So yeah, thanks for tuning in. Bye. Thanks for tuning in to Thriving with Trisha. If you enjoyed this episode, I would be so grateful if you hit follow, leave a review, and shared it with someone. I'll see you on the next one.